Well, the bells of St. Peter's are chiming behind me. It must be time to begin our program. Our live coverage of the Synod of Bishops on the Family. Today is the last day of the Synod meetings. This morning, the Synod Fathers heard the Relatio Finalis, the Synod's final document, read aloud to them with simultaneous translations provided. This afternoon, they voted on its contents paragraph by paragraph with a 2/3 majority required to each paragraph to pass. And we have it. It's just been approved. All of the 94 paragraphs had the 2/3 majority required. As we're speaking, Father Lombardi is holding a press conference with journalists in the Holy See press office to present the final document to journalists. This is going to be kind of an episode. This episode of the Synod coverage will be a lot of breaking news. As we're getting it from the Holy See press office, we're going to be passing it on to you. So we apologize if I keep looking at my smartphone or my tablet, but literally the information is just coming out. And to go through all of this with me, I need to welcome my first guest immediately, who's been following this since day one, and that is Alejandro Bermudez, who is the executive director of Achistampa and an expert on all things church and Vatican. Thank you, Alejandro, for being on the program.
It's great to be with you, Mary, especially this last day.
It's exciting, right? If we think about it, this is not just the fruit of 3 weeks' work here in Rome. This is the fruit of last year's Synod. This is the fruit of thousands of questionnaires that were sent to every diocese around the world, families giving their input, and these past 3 weeks have condensed it all together into 94 paragraphs. What do we know at this point about the Relatio Finalis?
Well, what we know is not much, because as you said, the press conference is just happening as we speak, literally.
Yeah, literally. I'll be checking Twitter while you're done. No,
good. But what we know is that the 94 paragraphs have been approved. According to our correspondents down in the ground, the Vatican will release the number of votes. We have to remember that in order to reach what is called synodal consensus, they have to vote 2/3 of the synodal fathers in favor of each paragraph that has been voted paragraph by paragraph.
So we'll know who voted? Yes or no on each paragraph? We don't know.
We will know who voted, but we'll know how many of them voted and how much consensus they got.
Maybe just the consensus, but not who voted which way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so we'll know more once the press briefing is over and we're here on the air. But we do know that the document has been approved. We know that Pope Francis just a few moments ago finished his concluding speech for the Synod. It's at the end of all of the voting. He spoke to the Synod Fathers and addressed them. And I believe that he got a standing ovation as he did his opening remarks. So the Synod Fathers stood and applauded, and maybe they just needed to stand up and stretch their legs as well. This has been a hard 3 weeks. So, but is that document going to be made available to us as well?
Yes.
Okay.
His words are also going to be available. What we know so far is that he spoke for about 30 minutes. It was longer than his opening speech, which means how important his words have been, how important they were. So we will have all that in the press conference.
Okay, so we'll know more about that content. We hope to be providing that to you as we go along, what Father Lombardi is telling us. Hopefully we'll get the script of not only the final document but the Pope's final remarks. And as we're waiting for all of this information to come to us so we can hand it on to you, Alejandro, I wanted to ask you, there was a press conference today, as we have each day. Today was the last one we'll have at 1 p.m., for better or for worse. They're over. But they talked about the Synod Fathers launched an appeal at the end, and this was for suffering Christians do you know more about that? It was in the Middle East, in Africa, and the Ukraine?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a stark and relatively unexpected statement from the Synodal Fathers, because normally every synod ends up with a message to the people of God. They decided in advance that they would not have a final message in this synod.
Okay.
But the need to express solidarity with the Christian families in the Middle East, the families in Africa where civil war and Muslim extremism has been hitting very hard many countries, and including the countries that the Pope is going to visit very soon. Yeah. And then the Ukraine, the situation with Russia that we know, we've been covering in Ewtn News Nightly.
Right.
So in all these circumstances, the bishops came up with a very stark document showing a tremendous amount of very clear solidarity and a claim to end the violence and not to use God as an excuse for violence.
I think that you say it was unexpected. It was a surprise. I mean, we were just concentrating on whether we would get the final document or not,
Exactly.
would there be the 2/3 majority, and we were looking forward to what the Holy Father would say tomorrow during his homily, because remember, tomorrow is the closing of the Synod Mass, so we will hear Pope Francis's homily. I think what he will say tonight, those closing remarks, plus the homily tomorrow, you think that will give us a look into the heart of Francis about what he has felt about the past year and a half, this focus on the family?
Absolutely. I think it will be an expression of his interest, the reason why he called two synods, one back to back, one extraordinary, one ordinary, 1 year after the other, with the World Meeting of Families right in the middle between one and the other. It will express his concern, but also I think he will express the relief of how well this synod has ended, especially if we consider how much of the press were covering this as a constant fight between sides and so forth. And now we know, and we will know even better when we see the numbers that show a significant level of consensus, all in all.
Yeah, we have to wait and see. I'm just going to, look down at Twitter while we can.
Go ahead.
I noticed some people tweeting the call for the use of internal forum to discern individual cases of Catholics who have remarried. Now, this is an issue that has worried some of the Synod participants, because when you speak about internal forum, that means if you're considering giving communion to a couple who is divorced and remarried, a lot of the Synod fathers are saying we need to take that on a case-by-case basis. Now, that means the couple with the priest talk about that in what's called an internal forum. That means the priest judges that couple's conscience and their particular situation. Some Synod fathers were worried because that gets into a gray area. This could maybe lead us in the wrong direction and could lead to a lot of more couples being readmitted to communion. Have you heard any talk of this internal forum? Is it worrying to your viewers, like the Spanish-speaking ones at all?
No, not really.
Okay.
For two reasons, Mary, is number one, I think we will have to take a look at the document as soon as we get it. We're still in a great expectation, but I think the Father Lombardi very clearly said, and that was repeated by some of the Synod fathers in personal conversations, that the concept internal forum, which is, as you know, because of your theological studies, that is a very complex concept, which you basically kill once you talk about internal forum. Once it stops being internal forum, it's not internal forum
external
anymore.
forum.
Exactly, exactly. So it's way too tricky to be there. So I have a healthy suspicion that the concept or the term is not there, and someone is overreading a little bit.
Overreading. Okay, yeah. This is what happens with Twitter. But a good thing about social communications is here it is, folks. I know you can't probably see it on my tablet thing here, but this is the relatio finalis. So this is the breaking news. This is the fruit of some almost 2 years of work, 94 paragraphs. I'm not sure how many pages it breaks down into. It's in Italian for now. And so what will happen is, on our programs tomorrow in Spanish and English and German, we're going to hopefully break this down. We'll be reading it all night, but if we're able to read it, I'm sure that at home, if you can read Italian, you can read it tonight as well. It just, it starts off the church listening to the family. That's the first part of it. It's just called the church listening to the family. Hasn't that been something the Synod Fathers have mentioned again and again, like just being together, this word ascolto in Italian, we need to listen more to couples and their struggles. I mean,
yes, absolutely, Mary. One of the important things about that is that the Pope Francis used the expression pastoral conversion on the part of the people. And when he was in Philadelphia, he explicitly said that bishops and priests should share family life, should share the family life of their flock, and which I hope this is the case. the only way to listen to the families is actually to get really involved, smell like sheep, as a Holy Father would say, because that's not a process that you complete during a synod. Not listening to the expert here or the auditors, you're going to get the sense of how families live if you are not a shepherd, if you are not a bishop or a priest that is actually involved with the life of your flock. So yes, this listening to has been a constant matter that we have seen during the press conference with all the bishops and cardinals that were invited to talk to us, the journalists.
Okay. We're hearing now that in the document, as I'm listening to people in my ear speaking about listening, is in number 75 of the document, that delicate question of communion for divorced and remarrieds was treated. It is treated in this document. Again, we're just gleaning at this point. This is no means an in-depth analysis, but they do mention in number 75 the need for discernment. So again, that area, and I think that's what we were talking about earlier, the internal forum. So this is, I think, a way of getting couples in these situations back on a path towards the sacraments. What this all means, I don't know. But do you think this synod was ever meant to answer all of these questions, or is this just the beginning of something? I mean, were we supposed to expect concrete pastoral solutions already after these 3 weeks?
Well, especially when the end of the synod was approaching, you may remember how bishops in general were warning, cardinals were warning, this is not a document that is meant to be released to the people. As a matter of transparency, is being made available. But this is a document from the bishops to the Holy Father. So there is no literally beauty on it, as there would be in one of the beautiful apostolic exhortations or encyclicals. There is no a full articulation. And the bishops that have been working in this, they say that the final document has a far more significant presence of the Holy Scriptures, for example. So they are generally pleased, and reflecting what a couple of synodal fathers told us about this final document is that it doesn't touch at all what is the standing teaching of the Church regarding marriage in general, and specifically what Familiaris Consortio, the apostolic exhortation of Pope John Paul, taught about family and marriage, including the fact that married and divorced in the new union cannot have access to the Holy Sacrament.
It was very clear on that, and a lot of people have brought that up and said, wait, is this a change on Familiaris Consortio? And so I think we have to read through the document and see where the two come close, but also where they come apart. And I think Pope Francis has said, the churches, changing Christians, we as Christians have to change, not the doctrine, but, maybe in the way we approach these situations and pastorally, or as we talk to our neighbor on the street. And so I think we'll have guidelines not only for bishops, but also for us as faithful, and how to reach out to families and help families where they are. One quick question before we have to go to commercial. In your coverage of this whole event and over the past year, what is something that stood out to you that will remain with you about this synod?
Well, at least what came from the Spanish-speaking bishops and what the Spanish-speaking audience was paying a lot of attention is a healthy self-criticism of the bishops in terms of, okay, why do we have so many problems with marriage? Why are we trying to put Band-Aids in a lot of wounds in the church? It's because we don't have the proper formation. And so the bishops have done a great level of honest, candid self-criticism. At least that became abundantly among Latin American bishops. And I am glad that happens, because when there is a healthy self-observation, self-analysis, you still have a lot of hope for change and for improvement in the Catholic Church.
Alejandro Bermudez, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we could keep going, but watch his program tomorrow for the Spanish language analysis of all this. They're on an hour before we are, and the German program is on an hour after we are. And my next guests will be the hosts of our German coverage, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Ewtn's coverage of the Synod on the Family, live from Rome. I have the pleasure of welcoming as my next guests Martin Rothweiler and Robert Rahut, who have been anchoring Ewtn's live Synod coverage in German. Gentlemen, thank you.
Hello.
Well, it's so nice to have you on the show because you come on after me, and so we're always, we're always here together, but you don't get to see them on the air with me. Exactly. These are the real brains here behind the operation, no. But my first question is, the document is out. You've had more of a chance to read it than I have because I have been on the air while Father Lombardi is briefing the press. Yeah. What do we know so far?
I think we had just a chance of a short, brief view at it, but we can also see already that there's a chapter beginning with chapter 84 saying about discernment and integration, which is a chapter naturally where it is talked about the access of to communion for divorced or married people. Ooh. And it says there, it's a phrase that it says it should be, the priests are recommended to accompany the families and the couples, very closely, and do it according to the teaching of the church and the orientation of the bishop. And Robert, you have, I think, knows something about how this came into what this means.
Basically, before I return to the question of numbers 84 to 86, let's state me that we have a very good document which is very, very biblical. When we compare it to the Instrumentum Laboris, we have now a very strong biblical fundament. So the concerns raised about the biblical fundament, they have really been taken account of.
Good.
So that's very good. Yeah. And we have many very strong passages affirming and protecting marriage and family in the classical way. When we get to the later part of the document, Martin referred to numbers 84, 86, we find this passage on referring according to ecclesial or church teaching. What's the story behind it?
Yes.
Generally, we had some American bishops who wanted to have most of the Familiaris Consortio 84 included in it, but we don't find the whole 84 now in that document. Therefore, because they couldn't get the whole part in it, the Synod Fathers, I'm not talking about the American about the Synod Fathers generally, they wanted to have included this passage referring to reading number 84 with regard to the teaching of the church.
Okay, so what are they saying then as regarding communion for divorced and remarried? So Familiaris Consortio is, we said, the document written by St. John Paul II after the last Synod on the Family, the last ordinary Synod on the Family in 1980, which speaks very clearly that people in the second unions may not approach the Eucharistic table. So how is this different? Is it different at all? What's the change?
It's not really different. What some Synod Fathers would have wished would be to read the number 84 in its integrity and with reference to the whole of ecclesial teaching.
Okay.
By that we mean 2,000-year tradition and the biblical fundament.
Okay.
Because what we should avoid reading Familiaris Consortio 84, which is an ecclesial magisterial document, is to have a hermeneutics of rupture in it. Okay. So we can't take part of Familiaris Consortio and avoid the other part. Mm-hmm. So we have to read it as a whole.
Okay.
And what we see is a sort of compromise between the reform-oriented and the classical understanding.
Where do we see the hints of the reform?
I think it's like the report also that the German language group gave. I think it's very much in line with that. At least we see, I think, the influence, the way. It's kind of a way out, not to say, the way is closed, but we have to, look into it, we have to study it. So it's not saying we need to give access to Holy Communion, but it will open the way. So it only, defines the first part of Familiaris Consortio. Okay. That's the thing. And you know that the German language group always stressed that we are unanimous and everything is unanimous.
Which was just,
which was,
a surprise, and one of the members,
in fact, one of the members told me that if this would be a decisive document, we would not have decided that unanimously.
So if they were deciding on doctrine,
exactly.
No way. Okay.
It was just, and they stated it's just a proposal for the Holy Father. So, and we're just questioning things.
Okay.
So this was the possibility probably for this unanimous report on the third part of the Instrumentum Laboris.
What about the Pope's closing speech? Because he gave a speech, as I was mentioned at the beginning of this program, it was longer than his opening speech. He got a standing ovation after this one as well. I'm dying to know what's in it. I haven't, but have you looked at it yet, either one of you?
Yes, I did. One point Martin stressed is important. We should not forget, with all the media outlets writing about the Synod now, this document is a proposition It's not a magisterial document. It becomes a magisterial document when the Pope is going to publish one with his signature.
Okay.
So now we have only a recommendation.
Okay.
Regarding the papal speech, it was well received. It was very long. He was hinting at many different aspects. So he wanted sort of please all the Synod fathers being assembled, underlining in that way his role as Peter, as a rock who stands for the unity of the College of Bishops.
So it addressed a lot of wide-ranging themes that would have been concerned to all the Synod Fathers, to let them know that they had been heard.
Yeah, he was one aspect he was referring to was the inculturation aspect.
So around the world, how the gospel is enculturated at the local level.
Exactly.
Okay.
And some would say, you know, it's maybe more on the traditions, on the liturgies, whereas others might say, oh, look, he is trying sort of saying we should adopt to the culture in the given region we meet. So this is quite open for interpretation.
I think it's probably very close to what he said on last Saturday during the 50 years Jubilee anniversary of the Bishop Synod, mentioning all the decentralization, the synodality, stressing these points. I think this is something that is going on, and naturally always a question: what does he mean? What does it really mean? And I think it really, requires a lot of interpretation and thorough interpretation.
What about back home in Germany? Because the German group, last year they were known for maybe pushing a certain. There are certain thoughts. As you've been covering this, you've been providing daily updates for people back home, to people who may have been confused by the last Synod. Do you think they're getting clarity now? Are you surprised at the unanimity of your cardinals and bishops during this one?
It's quite interesting because the Pope stressed the law. There was a discussion in the German public. What about natural law? What about natural marriage? Now he very strictly stressed the law, the moral law, is important. And that was in his final speech. So that was also a signal with regard to the German audience.
Okay.
At the same time stressing we should avoid legalism. And he also hinted a little bit in one sentence on conspiracies.
He did?
He
did. So he's not blind to this kind of conspiracy theories. But
coming back to the unanimity question, I mean, we naturally can see that the media try naturally to use it. So there was a first Twitter going out, the document was not published yet, but by a Catholic news agency, not by CNA, but by another Catholic news agency of the Bishops' Conference, saying there would be kind of the, they called it the Müller-Kasper-Schönborn solution or formula that has made it into that document. And that's always the way how media tries naturally to instrumentalize, to use the document, and to use also the unanimity, which is not really there, as we heard directly from the...
It's a spin.
So it's a spin to use that.
And you guys are good at helping me interpret that because, I can't follow all the language groups. We only have about a minute left. It's interesting that tonight there's a press conference with the German group because I think they're the most fascinating ones because you have Müller, who's the head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. You have Kasper. You have Schönborn, who basically drafted the Catechism of the Catholic Church. You have Cardinal Marx. So, I mean, they won't all be at the press conference, but, I mean, a couple of them will. Schönborn will be there. Marx will be there.
Exactly.
So, what do you think?
Nietzsche put it in one sentence. All it's about interpretation. So that's what we are going to see.
We're going to hear their interpretation tonight.
In a way, language is the key word, in a way. How to use that language and how is it to be interpreted.
I'm glad you're going to be at the press conference with me because I will not be understanding the German. But thank you both for helping us understand and bring us the scoop, the latest information on this document, which has just come out, everyone. That's all the time that unfortunately we have. But Robert and Martin, thank you so much for your expert analysis. And again, you can watch the show in German. It comes on, if we're on at 7 p.m. local time, they're on at 8 p.m. local time here in Rome, not to be missed. And tomorrow we all have our last shows. So tomorrow night is it. But anyway, that's our show for this evening. And remember, for all the latest information on this Synod, visit the Synod page on EWTN.com and follow us on Twitter at EWTN in Spanish and German and English. Tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Rome time for the closing Mass of the Synod with Pope Francis, and check your local listings to catch when the replay will be. We'll be broadcasting our last Synod update tomorrow at the usual time, so make sure you tune in. For now, I'm Mary Shevlin. Good night from Rome.